Call this meeting to order. Staff, will you conduct roll call to establish that we have a quorum present, please?
Commissioner Parker,
Present.
Commissioner James,
Present.
Chairman Peters,
Present.
Commissioner Smith,
Present.
Commissioner Echols.
Present.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioners, I've been asked to move item number 5 to item number 1. I will entertain a motion for the approval.
So moved.
May I have a
Commissioner
second?
Echols, second.
I have a motion by Commissioner James and a second by Commissioner Echols. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All those opposing? Nay. Thank you.
And that is a motion to approve the agenda with that correction.
That's correct.
The first item is now the KB rezoning request. The applicant has asked, the applicant sent some additional modifications on Friday. We just want to give sufficient time for the review on those items as changes to the site plan, which affects multiple departments. So we are recommending that that item be tabled until the next meeting.
Commissioners, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Commissioner James, motion to approve the tabling of item number 5 from tonight's agenda, which would be rezoning and concurrent variances for KBD Fairburn LLC.
Thank you.
Commissioner Echols, second.
I have a motion first by Commissioner James and a second by Commissioner Echols that this item will be tabled until the next meeting. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in opposition, the motion carries.
So the second item on the agenda is a rezoning and variance. There's been a lot of interest along 74 for mixed-use development. This is the second proposal we've had. The applicant is requesting to rezone the parcel from C2 General Commercial to PD to construct a mixed-use development. The applicant is also requesting a concurrent variance to reduce the parking requirement. Having reviewed all of the standards, there we go. Good. Okay, we got a map now. So just to kind of give context to the request, this parcel is located just behind World of Beverage. It is a little over 10 acres. It is in the Highway Mixed Use Zoning District. Staff reviewed the comprehensive plan, analyzed the site. In reviewing the comprehensive plan, because there is a significant amount of developments, we just wanted to make sure that everything aligns with that comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan recommends multifamily, townhouse, smaller scale, walkable retail. The proposed development is a multifamily small scale. The applicant is proposing 28 units an acre, and buildings range from 2 to 4, and the proposed zoning is PD plan development. So there were quite a few conditions that we looked at. The applicant has provided a site plan, they provided elevations, they're proposing 7,000 square feet of commercial, and they're also proposing a co-working space in front of one of the units. That's a new concept for Fairburn. I don't think we have a business of that nature here. Having looked at all of the conditions, all of the comprehensive plan elements and all of the policy, staff is recommending approval because of its alignment with the comprehensive plan, but with a number of conditions. Our traffic engineers, public works, fire department all had an opportunity to review the request And some of those conditions that are currently listed may be modified. We did receive the traffic impact study. After reviewing that, the preliminary executive summary did have some improvement requested, but I don't think that that would be an issue. I think once we have an opportunity to really delve deeply into that traffic study, we may be able to resolve some of the concerns from our Public Works Department. They were actually looking for that traffic study to validate some of their recommendations. So the applicant is asking for a maximum density of 284 units, building heights 4 stories, 25% open space. Because this item is a PD, we're also recommending that we have some conditions related to ensuring that the mixed use happens. When we've looked at some of the other PD rezonings in the city before, one of the challenges was the residential component tends to take leg, but the commercial component lags behind. Also, the mix of uses, ensuring that our residents have mentioned quite a few times that they want things like sit-down restaurants, coffee shops, restaurants, all of those elements. So we just want to make sure that, so we do have a condition that says for every 140 unit, there shall be 7,000 square feet of commercial, which means that the residential has to be built and the commercial before any other additional units would be allowed. We have looked at the architecture elevations, and so we wanted to make sure that we had some general language in there regarding architectural style, asking for things like brick, wood, cement siding, no vinyl, making sure that we have that commercial development. We also have a list of prohibited uses. These have been consistent with some of the other developments that we've had, things like drug rehab facilities, halfway houses, transitional housing, gas stations, drive-through restaurants, automotive repair, industrial uses, home and garden equipment and repair, pawn shops, motor vehicle, overnight vehicle parking of commercial vehicles. We just want to make sure that all of those items are strictly prohibited as a part of this development. And also, the applicant must submit a final concept layout of the site plan and building elevations, subject to the approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And that's just a check and balance. All of our commercial, industrial, multifamily developments have to come before Planning and Zoning, but we're also making sure that that's included as a part of the condition. So when the concept plan is finalized, because things are sometimes modified slightly, that the ordinance and the conditions that are proposed, those items will be presented again to the Planning and Zoning Commission, just to ensure that the elevations match with these conditions that we have briefly reviewed. The applicant is available to discuss his proposal. Are there any questions for staff? I know there's a lot of information.
Again, where did you say this sits behind World of Beverage?
The package store.
Okay.
So it's right at the edge of the city limits. The next parcel was actually outside city limits. And I think the properties that are just south, there is a data center being proposed. So, but that's outside our city limits.
Will the applicant be going through the presentation for us this evening?
Yes, the applicant is available.
Okay.
Commissioners, now is your time to ask questions of the applicant.
You guys ready for me?
Sure, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, it looked like something was going on, I didn't want to interrupt. My name is Harold Buckley. My address is 2849 Paces Ferry Road in Atlanta. I'm here before you on behalf of the Vita Companies, which is proposing to develop the site with a mixed-use development as Denise has described. My first image is just an orienting aerial. If you look at the bottom of the page, the red circle is over the World of Beverage that Denise was describing at the corner of Landrum Road and Sonoya Road. And then our property wraps like an L around that corner parcel. And as you can see, going north on Sonoya, you have a lot of commercial development leading to Sonoya Road's intersection with I-85. This is our site plan, and you can see that we are proposing 2 buildings. And at the upper right-hand corner of that site plan, you can see that World of Beverage property that we were talking about, and then we wrap around that corner lot. We are proposing 2 buildings, one of which will have the mixed-use components in it, and that's the building at the bottom of the site plan that you view coming in from the Sonoya Road side of the development. The brown part of that building represents multifamily residential units, and then the cutout part that's sort of purple and gray is where the non-residential components will go. You will have 7,000 square feet of amenity space for residents on the property, and then another 7,000 square feet of commercial space. Right now, we are targeting retail and restaurants for that space. That is our intention. We have not been able to seriously market the development to a commercial user because they tend not to take you seriously enough to talk to you if you don't have the zoning entitlements in place. They'll tell you to come back and talk to them when you have something that's real. So, but that is our intention, to have retail, coffee shop, restaurant, those sorts of uses in that non-residential component. And then at the upper part of the site plan, you see the second building. It is all residential. And we will have access not only from Sonoya Road, which is right in and right out, we'll have full access directly from Landrum Road as well. I want to touch on a couple of topics because Denise did a fairly comprehensive summary of the application and its compliance with the approval standards. But I wanted to talk about aesthetic quality and traffic, because those tend to be 2 of the main issues that people ask about when you're talking about developments that have a multifamily component. What you see up in front of you are images that show our design inspiration. We look to achieve visual layering in a number of ways. Number 1, with a lot of glass so that you can see into the building. And also we have a significant amount of articulation. And what that means is you don't have a blank flat wall. You push it in and out to create visual interest. And then also you can see the mix of materials that are being shown in those images, which is what we intend to do here. So this is the design language that we are proposing. With regard to how we will apply it to this particular development, this is an image of that non-residential corner for that first building coming off Sonoya Road. The shorter elements that you see is the commercial space. And then to the left and right on the wings, you can also see the residential components of that same building. The residential components tend to be a bit taller than the non-residential part of the development, but they are still consistent with the city's regulations and policies, which call for buildings like this one to be 4 stories or shorter, and we do meet that standard. In this image, you can see the second building to the rear of the site. This is the building that you would see coming directly off Landrum Drive. And what you see in both of these is, number 1, that high level of articulation where you push the wall surfaces forward and back to create visual image interest. You can also see a significant use of glass in that visual layering that I was talking about. And then in terms of the materials and colors, we do have a mix of materials, which would be a mix of brick, hardy plank, and hardy board. And hardy plank and hardy board would be that cement siding and that cement board. that is of a much higher quality than something like EFIS or, artificial stucco. We don't have any of that on this development. You see the balconies, the pitched roof with the dormers. On that image, you can see all of these elements are intended to convey a high level of quality in the image of this development. So that's the first point I wanted to make about our development proposal. The second part relates to traffic, because people always, are rightly concerned about the traffic impacts of a development like this one. As Denise mentioned, we have submitted a traffic study that shows that our development would have a negligible impact on traffic congestion in this area. The roadways in this part of Fairburn operate mainly at a level of service A or a level of service B. There is one C, I believe, but those levels of service will not be significantly changed or compromised. And that's looking at the road infrastructure the way it exists today. This image is taken from the information at the Georgia Department of Transportation, and this is related to an improvement project that DOT has already approved and funded. I don't know when it will start, but what it will do is rework that interchange between Sonoya Road and I-85, and it will also make substantial improvements to Sonoya Road itself, all the way from I-85 down to Landrum Road, so literally right to our front step. Those improvements will consist of improvements to the intersection, which will be either a diverging diamond arrangement or a partial clover leaf. Regardless of which way the department goes, and I don't know which it has chosen, that will improve the efficiency and carrying capacity along Sonoya Road at the interstate. In addition to that, between the interstate ramps and Landrum Drive, the DOT is going to be widening Sonoya Road. Right now it has 2 through lanes in each direction. It's going to be widened to have 3 lanes in each direction from 85 all the way down to Landrum. So with the information from our traffic study showing a negligible impact as the roadway exists today, and the fact that substantial improvements are on the horizon, I think that the record supports the position that at the very worst, our development won't make traffic worse. And at best, post-development traffic with these improvements may actually be a little smoother than it is today. So with that, I will end my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I will now entertain questions for staff regarding the request.
I do have one slight update. The applicant also requested a concurrent variance, and staff recommends approval of that because of the irregular shape of the lot.
I would like to know about parking. I see that there's a request to lower the amount of parking spaces required.
Yes, we've actually seen a lot of requests for the parking to be lowered. Our multifamily development has the same standards as single-family developments. So that means that for your typical multifamily, which might have just 1 bedroom, they're essentially having to uphold the same standard as a single-family home, which may have 2, 3 bedrooms, 2 garages. And because this development is having a reduction in the number of units, the majority of them will be 1 to 2 bedroom. There'll be we think in our professional opinion and based on what we've seen in the market and engineering recommendations, that it supports a reduction in the parking requirement.
Any more questions for staff?
Commissioner Parker, do we know what the price point is going to be for these?
I have representatives from the Vita companies with me, and I would invite one of them to come up and speak to your question. This is Trevor Kierecki.
Good evening, Trevor Korecki with Vita Companies. So with the price point, I will always preface that we're about 2 years out from actually having this built and starting leasing, so there's always, with market changes there. But for our 1-beds, it'd probably be around the $1,600 to $1,700 range. For the 2-beds, it'd probably be at about the $1,850 to $1,950 range, and for the 3-beds, it'll be probably around the $2,100, $2,200 mark as well.
State your address for the.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1270 Spring Street Northwest, Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you.
I had a question too regarding, I think Denise, you mentioned earlier a co-working component. Is that like a workspace where folks can rent out and work there? What's the co-working component?
Yeah, so a co-working space, it's essentially, it's a larger lounge with desk space and booths and even phone booths as well. One thing that we're finding, especially post-COVID, is a lot of people are working from home. And in our communities that we've been recently building it's a heavily utilized space that people ask more for. They want more of it as well. So me personally, I struggle working in my own home space, so having a nice little break, I can walk down, get away in a certain lounge as well. So yeah, with tables and booths, people they can meet in there. Well, obviously, we haven't gone full into planning as well, but typically these spaces include like a conference room as well that residents can rent out as well. And another aspect too is when we were looking at the market and getting understanding some of the other communities in town, typically like to ask, where people, with employment, just understanding the drivers, and they've noticed that a lot of residents are working from home. So while we're building our community and joining you guys, we noticed there is a need for it. So that was one of the aspects that think that it'd be a great amenity for the residents.
So that will be located in the retail space or the residential?
If you have the site plan, I can
Retail.
point it out.
Can we put that PowerPoint image back up? Gotcha.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you look at that second building to the north, and my eyesight's, I can't see what number it is, but you'll see a little rectangle out there designated for the co-working space. So it's directly, it's not isolated at all. One of our vision here too is with our commercial area, let's just say like we get a coffee shop in there too that, people are working, they want to, they're getting hitting that afternoon wall, they can just walk right over across the street and pick it up. So it'd be a ground floor, direct access to the outside as well, so people can come in and out. And in general, what we love to see in our communities is a lot of foot traffic and activation in there too. So having that connected as part of our general amenity offering is the reason behind where the location is.
Okay. And one more question. Did you say that residents will have to pay to use it?
No. So the residents will not have to pay to use it. Sometimes, let's just say like one of the businesses, they want to have like a little company retreat into there as well. But that is also, I apologize. But that is also, down the road on the business plan where I've seen a few communities where they do, and a few communities where we don't.
Commissioner Parker, one more question. I know you said you have to wait as far as the restaurants, businesses, but do you know what type you're gonna try to target?
Yeah, so we've already had preliminary discussions with a reputable broker who brainstorming ideas of restaurants, what we'd like to include down here, whether it's like a barbecue restaurant or like a sit down like Italian restaurant. But for right now, where we're planning, the door's open for any opportunity here. It obviously has to make sense for the market and for our community because we want high quality here as well. That's beneficial for the city and also for local residents as well.
Commissioners, you have any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner
Question, are the amenities for the residents only or outside people allowed to or have access to go in and use those amenities or visit the coffee shop, what have you? Or that room you were talking about?
Right. Right, so for the amenities themselves, for the pool area, that'll be strictly for the residents.
Right.
Obviously, for the commercial spaces, that will be open to the public. And then for co-working, we would definitely invite like the public to join and utilize it. That'll be part of our marketing package with our on-site team of, hey guys, and working with the commercial users of, hey guys, you want to come and get a coffee? You know, there might not be enough, if there's a lot of people working, there might not be enough room in the coffee shop. We have available space. So we want to work with the community as much as we can.
Okay. One other question. You mentioned the traffic study was done. The in and out on both sides, Sonoya Road and Landrum, is there going to be a light or some kind of stop sign or some kind of caution for people coming out?
So there will not be a traffic signal on Sonoy Road. That is a limited access driveway point. So from Sonoy Road, you'll only be able to make a right turn in and a right turn out. On Landrum, you will have a full range of motion as you leave the site, but we're not planning to have a traffic signal there either, because in order to have that traffic signal would have to warrant, and in order for the DOT to approve it. And we don't think that traffic coming on and off the site is going to warrant a new traffic signal.
Okay. No other questions?
I got one question. Commissioner Smith.
Mr. Smith?
You mentioned something about DOT widening down that road on Sonoria.
Yes.
Do you know the time frame when they're gonna do that?
I do not know the exact time frame. I do know that it is imminent. In addition to the improvements that I talked about at the interchange and the widening of the road, another component, the third component to those improvements will be upgraded traffic signalization. But again, to directly answer your question, I don't know exactly when they are going to start that work. I just know that it's been approved and it's definitely going to happen. It's not speculative in any kind of way.
Are you aware, of the amount of traffic that's coming from Peachtree City and Fayetteville that along that road?
Generally speaking, I'm sure I'm not as familiar as you are, but I generally, yes, I do.
So,
I have one more question, please. When residents or whomever are coming out of that area on Sonoya Road, there is going to be 3 lanes, as you mentioned. Now, a lot of people, even when they're coming out of World of Beverage, I see it all the time, there's a kind of quick left. You got to go all the way over to the 3rd lane to make a U-turn to go back up. Have you thought about that? Because people do it all the time.
We have not taken a look at what the vehicular movements coming off of our site would look like once they leave our property. We have focused our analysis mainly on traffic volume and congestion to make sure that the roadway is sufficient to handle that additional volume.
Okay, if there are no additional questions or discussions, I will now call this item to a vote. Yes.
Thank you.
May I have a motion of recommendations to the mayor and city council regarding this agenda item?
Commissioner Echols, I recommend approval to go to city council for parcel ID 09F020300080267.
Is that a recommendation of approval with the conditions recommended by staff?
Excuse me?
Is that a recommendation of approval with the conditions recommended by staff?
With the conditions, yes.
Yes. Okay, now I have a motion. May I have a second?
Commissioner Smith, second.
Okay, so I will call the vote. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those that are in opposition, please signify by saying nay. The motion carries.
I noticed that the agenda item E, approval of the meeting minutes, so if you can just do that,
Yes.
call that for a motion.
Absolutely. Okay.
Maybe we skip that.
Commissioner, I would now entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda for this evening.
Meeting
Commissioner
minutes.
Echols, I make a motion that the meeting minutes from October be approved as written.
Thank you.
Commissioner Parker, second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Echols and a second by Commissioner Parker. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those in opposition signify by saying nay. The motion carries. Commissioners, I trust that you have received the meeting minutes. If there are no questions or discussions
You've already made a motion to
We did
approve
that,
the
okay.
minutes. I
for the
think
agenda
the
and
next item would be the use permit, applicant T5 Data Center.
yes, okay. Our second item of new business is as follows. Staff, I will now ask you to present the staff analysis and recommendation, please.
Yes. The project site is located at the northwest corner of Galat Road and I-85 and is currently zoned M2 Heavy Industrial. The applicant requests a use permit to move forward. They are requesting a use permit to construct 2 data center buildings along with the essential infrastructure, driveway access, parking, utilities, stormwater management systems. The applicant has stated the operations would occur in the building with limited activities related to the exterior outside. There are quite a few items related to a use permit. One of those is the surrounding areas, looking at the protective screening, hours of operation. This particular type of use typically operates 24 hours a day, all year round. So it does use quite a bit of infrastructure, water, sewer, utilities, all of that. So the applicant did provide us with letters from the City of Atlanta utility companies showing that they would have sufficient means to be able to accommodate the development. That was one of the first things. As you all know, it was probably a few months ago we passed the updated development regulations that require all data centers being proposed in the city to complete a noise study. This applicant did provide that noise study. It was reviewed, and it did not show a significant impact to the surrounding area. One of the critical pieces of this site in particular is the surrounding developments. It's industrial, surrounded by industrial. I believe there is a salvage yard just north of the site. And if you go further toward Johnson Road, there's another data center that is in Palmetto. So it's outside the city limits, but the industrial uses really surround this site. So if we were looking for areas in the city to place a data center, this would be kind of the well-suited area. The applicant provided elevations of other developments that they've done. I believe they have locations in Alpharetta. They did provide a site plan showing somewhat of a preliminary review of the modifications to the site and how the data center would be placed. This is the clip from the noise study. I think that's really critical. As a part of our research for data centers, one of the common complaints, depending on the nature of it, is where is it located, how will it impact the surrounding areas, and one of the things that kept coming up in my research was really about noise mitigation. Because of its proximity to other industrial uses, limited residential in the surrounding area, we don't have any concerns at this point, along with the recommendations from that noise study about impact to residential or neighborhood commercial uses. The other piece of it is we are already planning for some improvements, working with the CID for doing traffic improvements that was planned before this development even existed. So there are some infrastructure improvements in terms of transportation that are already in the works. I believe it should start before the end of the year along Galat Road. So it will be better able to accommodate any new development. Typically, data centers don't have a lot of traffic or a lot of employees. So it's really the infrastructure utilities specifically that are most impactful to the surrounding areas. So we are, because of its alignment with the comprehensive plan, because of the noise study provided, because of the letters of support from the utility companies, we are recommending approval of the request with some conditions. Those conditions are our Public Works Department did provide some preliminary comments. We wanted to make sure that those items are addressed. Parking has to be on a paved surface. Additional landscaping may be required. Once we get those final elevations, we just want to know what that looks like, and we may have some additional recommendations. Along with the letters of capacity, we want approval letters of the design from the utility providers, because a lot changes when you actually see the actual plans. So we want to make sure early on, when the plans are done, that actually goes to the utility providers, and those letters are, because they're outside of our city limits, meaning they're outside of Fairburn utilities, we just want to make sure that all those other providers have sufficient time to look at the building plans and let us know that there won't be any impact to Fairburn residents. The developer must combine all parcels, because it's currently 3 parcels. We just want to make sure that as a part of the concept review, we also get a final plat to combine everything. Required system upgrades to support the power will be solely on the developer's expense, and the applicant must submit a updated concept layout, subject to approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. We also talked to our public safety officials, both fire, they're typically involved with everything, but we talked to the police department because of the critical nature of the infrastructure. We just wanted some public safety insight, and they recommended that along with the development plan, that a security plan is submitted to the police department so that they can review it, provide some recommendations, and also a fence surrounding the entire facility, which is typically common for data centers.
Commissioners, now it's time to ask questions of staff. So help me to understand what you're saying. There is a data center that's being put on Bohannon. Is this the same, or
No,
is
this is a
different?
completely different data center. This is being proposed on Galat Road.
So we're talking about 2 now.
Yes, that applicant had to go through a DRI process.
Okay.
So that delayed that item coming before you, but the item before you is not required to do that because it's significantly lower, which means a DRI, a Development Regional Impact, was not required. So the item before you is a data center being proposed on Galat Road.
All right, commissioners, do you all have any questions for staff?
Staff, you did say that this is a picture, this elevation we're looking at is Alpharetta. I thought you said something about their,
What is this?
this is their, no.
Mr. Smith, his desktop got mixed up.
Picture I'm looking at.
Here we go. This was one of the elevations that was in the second. There we go.
Miss, you just,
One moment, they're getting the elevations together. There we go. Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. We're both trying to,
yeah, that.
there we go.
Oh,
So that was one of the elevations to show what they've built in other communities. I don't know the exact location. The applicant can provide that with you. But I think that was helpful, because to kind of see the standard that they've set in other communities so that we can know what to expect.
Exactly. Yep, I thought I heard you say Alpharetta.
T5 does have a location in Alpharetta.
Okay.
commissioners, have any other questions for staff?
I have a question. With the abundance of water that I understand that's needed to cool these machines down, who's going to benefit from the monies, or who will be paid? Would the city of Fairburn benefit from, would they get the water from the city of Fairburn? That's what I'm trying to find out.
No, ma'am. The water is actually outside our city limits, but in terms of economic impact related to revenue, that is not something that a use permit looks at for consideration. But the applicant did provide a letter from the city of Atlanta related to the request. But it's outside of our
It's outside
city
the
limits in terms
limits.
of water usage, yes.
Right, right. Have they talked or mentioned anything about the health detriment to people in the area that's closer to it?
Because the applicant has provided the noise study, and they can detail, there are similar developments in the general area, in the metro Atlanta or in other regions, so they can detail kind of the ways they've been mitigating the impact. I think one of the key elements to making sure that a data center has less of a health impact is making sure that it's away from people and away from residential areas. This, of course, is surrounded by industrial developments.
Commissioner Parker, so what is the closest subdivision to this?
I believe the closest residential development is probably further down Galat Road. There is, if you look at it, on the map, there's Johnson Road and Galat Road. The larger piece of industrial, that's where the data center is being proposed. There is some residential further down Galat Road in the rural residential, and then there's a higher density development further along Johnson Road, and then there is, if you keep going past where our map indicates, there's a proposed residential development, but there's quite a bit of distance between any residential and the industrial property.
Thank you. Commissioners, now it's time to ask questions of the applicant.
I think we've asked all our questions, but is there anything that you just want to share with us?
Sure. First, my name is Tim Bright. I'm a Senior Vice President with T5 Data Centers. I also have Reed Irwin with us, who is our civil engineer. Address is 3434 Peachtree Road, Atlanta, Georgia. Couple things. T5 is Atlanta-based. We've been around since 2008. We're a national developer of these types of facilities all around the country. Basically, when you think about what this building is, it's the cloud. And so anytime you go to Netflix, your bank, try to book a flight, any of those things, it goes through a facility just like this. We've been successful developing them primarily in NFL cities around the country. We go through these same types of meetings in lots of communities, and there are lots of concerns because of the prolific nature of this type of building because of the need. Commissioner Eccles, one question you had was about the water utilization for cooling. There are other ways to cool data centers. This facility happens to be air-cooled, and so the concern that you may have read about in other communities using a lot of water for cooling would not be an issue with this facility. We did mention the relatively small amount of traffic that is driven out of a large development like this relative to other uses. Basically, a two-building facility of this may have a total of about 50 people. It is a 24/7, 365 building, but once it is fully developed, other than the shift changes of security personnel and people who maintain the facility, it's really not a building that any public would go in or out of. It's also a building that you would not have a large amount of deliveries to, other than the typical, FedEx, UPS, daily type stuff, and occasionally deliveries of new equipment. It's not an industrial building that you would receive a lot of truck traffic to. I think I'll stop right there unless there are other specific questions.
Well, I do have a question. Do you handle data for one company in particular or various companies? How does that work?
Various companies. So just think of us as, in a different use, as an office developer. We happen to develop for almost solely now hyperscale companies and artificial intelligence companies. So Microsoft, Oracle, Google, AWS.
Got it.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, Commissioner Smith, my only question is, can you assure us that it doesn't pose any hazard to the residents, surrounding resident? Something go wrong?
Well, surely I'm not able to do that, but I can tell you that we've done these all over the place, and there are items to think about, noise being a big consideration. And so we have done that. We do that through the orientation of where the generators, which are the largest producer of noise would be, are located on the site. We've located it in an industrial area. It's also driven by proximate location to high voltage power. And so there is a Georgia Power transmission line that transverses the site. And so we don't have high voltage power lines that we're trying to extend, through a neighborhood or anything like that to get to us. It's right there. And so we've cited the project specifically to try to avoid all of those negative impacts, perceived negative impacts, and real negative impacts that would come along potentially with a project of this size and infrastructure needs.
There are no additional questions or discussions. I will now call this item to a vote. May I have a motion of recommendation to the mayor and city council regarding this agenda item? Motion?
Commissioner James, I motion that we approve to mayor and council petition for T5 data center
Second.
with staff's
Commissioner Smith,
recommendations.
second motion.
All right, I now have a motion and a second, so I will call the vote. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those in opposition signify by saying nay. The motion carries. Thank you. Our third item of new business is as follows. Text amendment applicant Rosh and Tony Wilburn, property owners Rosh and Tony Wilburn. Summary, the applicant requests approval to change the setback requirements for portable accessory structures. Staff, I will now ask you to present the staff analysis and recommendations, please.
Good evening and happy Election Day, Commissioners.
Thank you.
So we have a text amendment request before you for your review tonight. So the applicant could not be here tonight due to a scheduling conflict with their job. So the applicant wants to construct a carport within their side setback. However, according to the current zoning ordinance, that is not allowed. Accessory structures may only be located within the rear or side yards only, but shall not be located within the setback or within the front yard areas. Setbacks are established to ensure safety, improve aesthetics, protect utilities and the environment, and to also control density. However, setbacks may create a necessary hardship for some property owners. I believe it is our duty to mitigate any unnecessary hardships that property owners and/or applicants may have due to circumstances that are out of their control. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation to allow for the location of accessory structures within side and rear setbacks in residential zoning districts with specific conditions for doing so. These conditions still comply and respect the general purposes of establishing setbacks. Staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval to the Mayor and City Council with the following standards for portable accessory structures, also known as PASs. And so I'll go over the proposed new regulations. So portable accessory structures, also known as PASs, shall be defined as a building detached from a principal building on the same lot and customarily incidental to the principal building or use, included but not limited to detached garages, utility buildings, sheds, and gazebos. It will be allowed in the R1, R2, R3, and R4 zoning districts. No PAS shall be located in the front yard of any residential zoning lot. Accessory use structure shall only be located in the rear and side yards. No PAS shall be located in the rear or side setback areas of any residential zoning lot that is less than 50 feet wide at the rear or side property lines. If a residential zoning lot is at least 50 feet wide at the rear or side property lines, a single PAS with an area of no more than 100 square feet may be located in the rear or side setback areas. If a residential lot is at least 100 feet wide at the rear or side property lines, 2 PASs use structures may be located in the rear or side setback areas, provided the total combined area of the structures does not exceed 125 square feet. No PAS which is allowed to encroach into the rear or side setback area of any residential zoning lot in accordance with the provisions of this ordinance shall be located closer than 5 feet to the rear or side property lines, nor shall any encroaching structure exceed 8 feet in height above the existing ground at its eave line or 12 feet above the existing ground at the highest point of its roof. In the case of corner lots, The PAS may not be closer to any right-of-way than the principal building. No PAS intended to store flammable materials shall be located closer than 20 feet to the primary structure on the zoning lot or any other primary or accessory structure. This color scheme of an accessory use structure shall blend with the colors of the primary structure on the same zoning lot or shall be earth tones. The floor area shall not exceed the total floor area of the main structure or dwelling unit. It must be accessible by a driveway constructed from asphalt, concrete, or other permeable type pavers approved by the city. No PAS used for non-residential purposes such as garages, greenhouses, or workshops shall not be rented or occupied for gain. No PAS shall be constructed upon a lot until construction of the principal structure has commenced. I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now entertain questions for staff regarding the request.
Staff, did you say what this structure was for?
The applicant is proposing a carport within their side setback area.
Any questions? Okay. And since the applicant is not here, then there are no additional questions or discussions. I will now call this item to a vote. May I have a motion of recommendation to the mayor and city councils regarding the agenda item?
Commissioner Smith, so moved.
May I have a
Commissioner Echols, second.
I now have a motion and a second, so I will call the vote. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in opposition, please signify by saying nay. The motion carries. Our fourth item of new business is as follows. Rezoning applicant Dog River Investment LLC, property owners Dog River Investment LLC. The property location is 224 Sonoya Road, parcel ID number 09 Frank 1015004700241. The summary is the applicant is requesting approval to rezone the parcel from the property from an R3 single-family residential zoning district to O&I office and institutional zoning district. Staff, this will be the last to be added item to the table. Added, correct? Staff presents.
Thank you. So we have a rezoning request before you guys. So just some property information. The address is 224 Sonoya Road. The frontage is Sonoya Road, and the area of the property is 0.5 acres. The existing zoning is R3, and the current use is a home. The 2040 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map designation is Town Center Mixed Use, and the proposed zoning is office and institutional. So the applicant is proposing to convert the home into an office for a Pioneer Land Group, who is a land brokerage company. The property will remain unchanged with the exception of bringing the property up to code, for example, handicap accessibility. That is what the site looks like today. And that is a survey as well as a site plan of the property. All right, so the property is surrounded by, to the north, office and institutional, as well as to the east, which is currently zone R3, as well as to the south, which is R3 as well, and to the west is zone office and institutional. All of the abutting properties have a future land use designation of town center mixed use.
Commissioners, are there any questions for staff?
Sorry, I'm still presenting.
You
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everybody look at the
Okay.
map. Okay, so Just a little bit of background about why they would need to rezone. Currently, right now, the parcel is zone R3, and the only permitted uses under R3 are accessory dwelling units, communications, utilities, institutional uses such as your schools and your religious facilities, nonprofit recreational uses such as playgrounds and parks, and of course, as well as single-family detached dwellings. So they would need to rezone to maintain an office at this property. They did hold a community meeting on October 2nd, 2024. There was one attendee, and the applicant is here to tell you how the public participation went. And we also need to go over the some considerations are the zoning review. So the proposal does permit a use that is suitable in view of the use and development of adjacent properties. The proposed use is an office. This parcel is surrounded by a church to the west, an office to the north, a school to the east, and a single-family dwelling to the south. The proposal does not adversely affect the existing use or usability of adjacent or nearby properties. Yes, the property appears to have a reasonable economic use as currently zoned. And to give a little bit more detail, the current staff of the proposed business is 3. So the average household size is 2.5. If the staff of the proposed business all commute to and from the proposed business alone, there will be an additional 3 vehicles per day added to the existing street network and transportation facilities. The average vehicle per household is 2. Therefore, there will be a near negligible effect on the existing streets and transportation facilities. I will also note that utilities and schools will not be adversely affected by this rezoning. The proposal is in conformance with the policies and intent of the land use plan. The proposed business is an office. The future land use designation for the subject parcel is town center mixed use. Office and institutional is an appropriate zoning district in the town center mixed use future land use designation. And office is an appropriate use in the town center mixed use future land designation as well. There does not seem to be any existing or changing conditions that would affect the use and development of the property. And the proposal does not permit use that can be considered environmentally adverse to the natural resources, environment, and citizens of Fairburn. The applicant and staff will ensure that the property is up to code before a business license is issued. So the zoning request for the subject parcel is in conformance with the future land use map as well as the comprehensive plan. Therefore, staff recommends approval with the following condition. Any significant modifications determined by staff to the proposed rezoning request would necessitate a further review by the Planning and Zoning Commission. I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, now is your time to ask questions of staff.
No questions here.
No questions? Okay. Commissioners, now is your time to ask questions of the applicant. Would you come forward, please?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Kyle Gable, 9250 Cedar Grove Road, Fairburn, Georgia, 30213.
Commissioners, proceed with questions.
I don't have it.
Okay.
No.
All right, if there are no additional questions or discussions, I will now call this item to a vote. Nancy. May I have a motion of recommendation to the mayor and city council regarding this agenda item?
Commissioner Echols approved recommendation to mayor and city council with the
Conditions?
statements from the staff approval.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Smith, second.
I now have a motion and a second, so I will call the vote. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those in opposition signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Staff, are there any updates?
We will have the proposed calendar for the upcoming year we'll send out dates in case anything, a holiday or any major events, we'll make sure to have approval and you have a look at that. Other than that, thank you all. This has been a long year that went by really fast. So I really, if nobody says it, I appreciate your service and reading all those packets and just giving feedback directly from the community. So thank you.
Commissioners, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn the public meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Parker, second.
I now have a motion and a second, so I will call the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Your oppositions, nay. Motion carries. You're adjourned.